From the rugged desert outside Yuma, Arizona, this is Outpost Outspoken. Outpost Outspoken is the official podcast of U.S. Army Yuma Proving Ground, which conducts natural environment testing of military equipment in Arizona, Alaska, and the tropics. Hello, I'm Mark Schauer. Yuma Proving Ground is at the forefront of current Army transformation efforts. And the time David Bates, cross-functional integrator for YPG's Air Combat Systems Directorate, spent in uniform gives him a particular appreciation for ensuring soldiers have the best equipment. You come from a prominent military family.
Yes. So my grandfather actually was a base commander in Incirlik, Turkey. And he was the base commander for Incirlik Air Force Base, and my mother was working as a contractor for the Blackhawks there, and that's kind of how my mother and my father met. My father was a Turkish Air Force officer. He was a pilot in Turkey, and that's kind of how that came about. And I was born in Ankara, Turkey, for kind of that reason there. So fast forward. My father passed, my mom kind of moved the family back to the U.S., kind of doing my thing. I started off in the San Fernando Valley in Los Angeles. Middle school, started off in ESL. English was my second language, so I kind of had to go through that process. Then went to high school in the Valley and ended up kind of moving to Sacramento. I was kind of trying to find my way there, and I decided the Army was my calling. It was kind of like that, and that was about 2006 that I joined the Army.
After your enlistment, you went to CSU, an electrical engineering degree?
Yes. Got my bachelor's in electrical engineering from Cal State University, Northridge. So that was a great and fun process. I used the GI Bill for the most part. I didn't have a clue that I was going to come back working for the Army, but it became kind of the natural order of things. I finished up school. I was looking for a job, kind of in limbo for like a couple months there. I had just gotten done working for a microchip company. I didn't want to do that anymore. I was looking for a different type of job. I don't know. I'm clumsy, so I can't work with those little microchips. So I was looking for a job. Then got the opportunity from Trax to come out here and check it out. And the funny story about that is that they're giving me the tour around the base, and I see an Abrams drive by, and I jokingly say, "Hey, will I get to drive one of those?" And Andy Schaefer at the time, he kind of was like, "Yeah, actually, we encourage you to drive it." And I looked at him, I'm like, "Really?" He's like, "Yeah, absolutely. That's a part of the job." I was like, "All right, I'll take the job." He's like, "Well, we didn't offer it to you." I said, "Well, you're going to. Don't worry. I'll take the job."
Had you ever heard of Yuma Proving Ground while you were in uniform?
Oh God, I didn't even know Yuma existed. I had no idea what a Yuma was. I had to look it up on a map, and looked up the quick facts about it, where it's one of the hottest places on Earth and all this kind of stuff. And after having a couple deployments, I'm like, well, I don't know if I want to go back to a really, really hot spot. But again, seeing what the Yuma Proving Ground did for the military and kind of what the mission is here really inspired me.
Now these days you're the cross-functional integrator for the Air Combat Systems Directorate. And you were very heavily involved with Project Convergence 22 Technology Gateway, the first one ever held.
True. So yeah, I am the cross-functional team integrator, or one of the cross-functional team integrators in the Air Combat Systems Directorate. I specifically work in the areas of assured position navigation and timing, or electronic warfare, and I was lucky enough that my leadership was confident in me being able to do something like Technology Gateway. So I was very happy when I was kind of tapped on the shoulder to lead the effort for Technology Gateway on the YTC side, and make sure that we were coordinated, ready, and had the resources pulled in, and kind of dealing with the back and forth with the DevCom team, who actually turned out to be outstanding partners in the whole process. It was a learning experience. It was a humbling experience, and it was definitely a fun experience. And when you kind of look at the large picture of what Project Convergence and specifically Technology Gateway is for the Army, it really is very exciting and very humbling at the same time, because you are part of the transformation of the Army and the modernization of the workforce and all that. So it's actually really interesting to look at it from the broad picture perspective and the impact that ATEC and YPG specifically is having on the future of the warfighter.
David Bates, really appreciate your time today.
Of course, thank you very much.
Welcome, I'm your host, Ana Henderson. The work Human Proving Ground employees do on the clock is always impressive. Their dedication to the mission is something they all speak about. Outside of work, they also put their skills and talents to good use. Marine veteran and YPG employee Richard Gillmor published his first book, and he's here to share his story. Welcome, Richard.
Thanks. Happy to be here.
Congratulations on your book.
Thank you.
I read your author page and you wrote, "What about this? Stop just talking about the ideas and try to transform them into books." What finally gave you that push? Like, how did the idea to write a novel begin?
A few years back, my son got old enough, so I started showing him the movies I used to love as a kid in the 80s, and they were all like the Terminator movies and just talking about the different alien movies and stuff like that. And we got into that, and I started thinking about the old vampire movies I used to like to watch. Interview with the Vampire always comes to mind, and I thought, why were all vampire movies always in books, always set in either Victorian era or current time? And I was like, yeah, it'd be kind of cool if you threw one into the future, into a apocalypse style, Terminator style. So like, okay. So for years I would just randomly think about it and talk about it with my wife, and she's like, just stop talking about it and just write a book. So after enough time of her saying that, I was like, you know what? I'm going to do it. I read a few books, reading to my child, and I thought to myself, I mean, these aren't really executed all that well. I mean, I could do okay. Like, it can't be worse than this. So I decided to give it a shot, let her read a couple pages or a couple chapters, and she told me it wasn't bad, so give it a real shot. Went all the way.
How long did it take to write the book, and just share your process? What were you working, after work, staying up late? Did you write down notes here and there? Like, how did that process work?
So it was always after work and at home. Most of the time it was after everybody was asleep, because, you get home from work, you do your parenting duties, you got to do all those type of things. So you got to do it whenever you have free time. So it ended up being almost like a second job, where I was just, whenever I had the opportunity, went and do it. You
said you kind of bounce ideas off, like, your son and your wife.
Oh yeah. So I mentioned in my synopsis that, what about this? So that's kind of the game I like to play with him, which is come up with different ideas and say, okay, what about this? What if I, throw a vampire into Terminator? What do you think about that? And he's like, oh, that's a cool idea. And so I would start discussing different things with him on that. And it gets kind of crazy, the story itself. But I mean, a lot of those ideas, funny enough, come up as I'm like mowing the yard or cleaning something at the house. Or you do something mindless, and all of a sudden a random idea comes up, and you're just like, hey, maybe I should take that thread and run with it and see what I can do with it. And it kind of goes crazy.
And your book is titled Almost Immortal, so give us a little bit of the synopsis. Now I know it has vampires in it.
So the main character is a vampire. You're sitting with him. He's talking to a couple other soldiers that are in the future. I didn't define the time of the future, so that it's kind of like the reader to kind of set the timeline themselves for where it was, but it's in the near future. How about that? And so he kind of gives his background of how he got to where he's currently at. How did he get to where he's sitting talking to these two guys? And at the same time, I'm given the background of the AI and how it came to be, and basically get it to where it's the present time, which is where they're at. So going through recounting his past, how he came to be, and all that. And
I like that you don't determine like what in the future, because I think as a reader, you always kind of imagine things, and that's the fun part about reading. You imagine how the character is going to look. You imagine where the setting is. So I think it's nice that you let the reader imagine that. Now, I do find it interesting that here at YPG, you are a information technology specialist. And in your book, artificial intelligence plays a role. Did anything from your work here inspire your book?
Thankfully. If anything from work inspired what I put in that book, that'd be scary. But no, it's, just old movie ideas and books that I read before, and then just taking those basic concepts and just kind of twisting them into something different.
Okay, now tell me more about your role as an IT specialist and how it supports the mission of testing equipment for the warfighter.
I've been at YPG now for almost 18 years, working in mission control. The title IT Specialist is essentially the same exact thing I was doing when I was TRAX in mission control. Now I just oversee the mission control area. I do a lot of their development for and integration for software and hardware testing and stuff like that. We provide, operational picture for the test environment to make sure test execution is going the way they want, the instrumentation is tracking the test article the way they want it, and we're displaying and giving them enough data to make real-time decisions of tests that are happening as it's happening.
And just for the listener, I'm going to let them know that mission control is how it shows in the movies a little bit.
It's like a small scale.
Right. There's seats, and then you look forward, and there's a whole bunch of different TVs with different angles. So mission control is kind of like what you see on the TVs in this case. Now, you also served some time in the Marines. Did that experience help at all with what you do here at YPG and also maybe with your book?
It did help that I think it made me passionate about the job I do here because I was in the military, still supporting the military, so I like that. I had an air traffic control background in the Marines, which helped in mission control because you're talking to aircraft and separating aircraft and having to monitor what's going on around you and just the multitasking that takes place with that. So that helped out a lot. I think for the book, maybe just the mindset that someone has if they're in a situation where they have to depend on themselves and take care of those around them, or you go into a fight and it's just you or them, and you have to keep that kind of mentality. So I think that's important. So
do you plan to write any more?
I do. That is so this book was the first in the series that might be 3 or 4 books long. I don't know, it might be longer, who knows. But playing that what about this game with the kid, I've actually got a few different ideas also, so maybe one after I get a few books in this series I'm gonna do a few other ones. So I don't know, I got 6 or 7 in my head at this point, or on paper to do.
Wow, well, you said it, you put it out into the universe, so now it has to happen.
I'll try.
Well, it's very inspiring. Like I told you off air, that writing a novel is something that I would love to do as well, so maybe one day. But Richard, again, congratulations on your book, and thank you for the work that you do here at YPG to support the warfighter.
Thanks, Ana.
This has been Outpost Outspoken. Thank you again for listening. We'll see you next time from the Army's busiest test center.